Hello and welcome to Chess Lovers channel. Thomas Engqvist is speaking. Today I'm going to talk about a very strong answer to 1e4. I believe d5, the Scandinavian defense, is a very dangerous opening, because what is happening after e takes d5? Queen takes d5. White has weakened his king side because his e-pawn is exchanged for black's d-pawn. So black has essentially a stronger king side position here, as 4 pawns are protecting the king, but for white's only 3. And you can also see that the queen is already developed, while white's queen is undeveloped. So the most critical reply is obviously knight c3. And here there are many interesting replies. So the principle is we want to play the Scandinavian defense in an active way. And many moves has been tried here. Maybe the worst of them is queen c6. It's actually the 7th most common move. But it fails to the pin bishop b5, and queen a5 is another move that has been played to put some pressure on the diagonal c8 to h3, but the problem is after d4 followed by bishop d3, black will lose tempos with his queen. Also queen d7 with the same idea, to put pressure on the diagonal c8 to h3. So the fundamental idea is that after bishop c4, black can exchange queen with queen g4, but the problem is that the c7 pawn has been weakened after knight d5. So white is forced to move his king here, and after knight e3, white is obviously clearly better. I mean, the f7 pawn is hanging, so white has all play in this position. So this is not the solution to play active. We must find the right balance, how to play not too passively with the king and not to be too active. So what replies do we have left? For example, queen e6 check has been played by Magnus Carlsen in blitz games. And the idea is to use the 6th rank to maneuver the queen to g6 and put pressure on g2. But white just developed his pieces, and despite the fact that black has won a pawn and white's kingside is totally crushed, white has more than enough compensation. So this is very risky. You might play it in blitz games, but not in a classical game. We also have queen e5, which is a more reasonable defense. And white can play queen e2. But as you can see here, after, for example, these natural moves, white now has a strong d5. And if white managed to play d5 like this, Scandinavian defense is normally refuted. So the key is to keep control of the d5 square. Now we have the 3 most common move left. Queen d8. It has even been played by Magnus Carlsen in the game against Caro-Kann, which he even won. But this is against the true spirit of the Scandinavian defense, because black is really losing a tempo here, so I would not recommend queen d8. The second best move is queen a5, but this is a very demanding variation. You must know a lot of theory. You must know, for example, Mises gambit. You must know Bangiev's variation, Rosenthalis variation, and Tartakov's variation. Of course, you must know decent moves like knight f3 and d4, and here you must decide, should you play the Anderson variation? Should you play the Teichmann variation or the Mises variation? And another problem with this variation is if you know thoroughly, it is hard to avoid positions where you get a double pawn or where white managed to make a breakthrough with d4 to d5. So my recommendation is actually to play the Pytel variation, Queen d6. And the Pytel variation was named after the Polish international master Krzysztof Pytel. You can see him here. But it was essentially his wife, Bożena Pytel, who started to play this variation. And the idea with the Pytel variation is to set up a Caro-Kann position with c6. So what you essentially are doing here is you are playing the Caro-Kann with an active queen, and as you also can see, the knight on c3 is not well placed. So one big advantage playing the Scandinavian defense is that you avoid the advanced variation, 3, e4 to e5, in the Caro-Kann defense. So that is one very important point. And the point is to stay active with the queen. So if the queen is threatened in the future, for example, with such a move, you just continue to play actively with queen b4. So you should normally avoid putting the queen on d8. You only do such a move if it's necessary. So this is my recommendation, to play the Scandinavian defense, the modernized variation. And the key is to play as actively with the queen as you can play. For example, in this variation, bishop c4, you don't play c6. You normally play c6 after a move like knight f3. Now you play a6 instead, because you want to keep the square c6 open for the queen, so that after knight ge2, you can play queen c6 and just pick up the pawn on g2. And this variation is leads to balance play with mutual chances. So there are many interesting variations if you enter the Pytel variation. Here we have the main position. So this is my recommendation. I wish you good luck with this opening.